Today, folks, we make the underappreciated the hero, because everyone deserves to feel like a hero sometimes. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dev Diary, a series where I try to make my own video games. And so if game dev videos are your thing, consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications so you don't miss future videos. The premise for today's project is simple. Mash up a Link to the Past era gameplay with that of Viscera cleanup detail. Now before we get into things, let's address a couple of elephants in the room. I did not have time to animate anything, so if the player is not moving is too jarring, I don't know, imagine they're on rollerblades or something. Second, I may have accidentally borrowed too much of the player's design from a certain famous franchise, but in my defense, there's really only a few good ways to depict a person at such a low resolution. And finally, there was an attempt at a different auto-tiling method, and as you can see, it was kind of a failure. This is what happens when someone who is bad at math punches above their weight. So, you know, stay in school, kids. Anyway, as expected, the way that our player handles takes huge inspiration from A Link to the Past. But instead of a sword swipe, we've got a broom poke. And this change was made for ace tactical waist precision maneuvers. Yep. Now holding the broom out will also lock the player into a strafe mode, and indeed continuing to hold the button will let the player do a 360 sweep when they release it. Incredibly nifty for trash that gets stuck in corners and can't be moved any other way. Because yes, this is a video game and there are video game elements. For example, trash is broken up into 3 weight classes: light, medium, and large. This weight class determines 2 things: how far trash can be swept and how efficiently the player can push that trash around. Anything larger than the player's weight class cannot be pushed without the broom. Meanwhile, anything below their weight class have their own specific behaviors. By default, the player is classified as medium in weight. This allows a player to carry medium trash like Link would with boulders, for example, and it's a far more efficient way to move larger objects than relying on the broom. The trash of the small weight class are the easiest to transfer because they can be collected and stored in the player's backpack. The only downside is the player can only hold up to 10 pieces of trash in their bag at any given time. Players will then have to return to spawn to empty their bag in that big old green trash bin. Now personally, the game could just be about tidying up the level and I'd be golden. But, you know, to make things more of a actual quote-unquote game, the goal is to return each trash type to its designated section in the world. The sections, which of those sections are marked for storage, and even the amount of trash spawned are all random. But to make things a little bit easier, the game will keep track of the player's cleanup progress. And, you know, kind of thinking further, if this were an actual game, it'd probably be like a time attack type of game, or you know, like how fast can you clean up the level? I don't know. But speaking of fast, a quick reminder that if you enjoy the content, supporting me on Patreon is the best way to help me keep making it. Doing so can get you access to exclusive content and downloads, and even early access to the weekly Dev Diary videos before they're released on YouTube. Now, that was about it for the gameplay loop. A bit on the lighter end, but for good reason. A large motivation to work on this project was to get better at writing collision code. More importantly, tile collisions. Now, to avoid getting too technical here, a huge amount of time was spent trying to prevent trash from not only getting stuck in each other, but more importantly, the walls of the level. And because there are so many ways that the player can interact with said trash, this took some extra effort. And thankfully, a lot of that hard work paid off. Unfortunately, more work needs to be done. Still, I had fun putting this one together, and it was also great to finally create a Viscera cleanup-like game for the channel. Probably something I wanted to do since I started doing this, actually, now that I think about it. And speaking of thinking of the project, I've also been thinking of like ways that I would expand on the idea. Like, it might be cool to have some RPG elements, for example, increased player weight or carry weight, etc, etc. But again, those are just some little random extra bits that I've thought about since. So what did you think of this project? Good mashup? Worthy of continuing with those little bits? Or maybe it's a bad call. What would you add next? Whatever's on your mind, be sure to share it in the comments. And if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like. But with that said, brings us to the end of today's Dev Diary, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.